the acceptable strategy, the acceptable strategies, the acceptable covert strategy, the acceptable covert strategies, the acceptable overt strategy, the acceptable overt strategies, the acceptable indirect strategy, the acceptable indirect strategies, the acceptable direct strategy, the acceptable direct strategies, the acceptable soft strategy, the acceptable soft strategies, the acceptable firm strategy, the acceptable firm strategies, the acceptable hard strategy, the acceptable hard strategies, the acceptable beginning strategy, the acceptable beginning strategies, the acceptable middling strategy, the acceptable middling strategies, the acceptable ending strategy, the acceptable ending strategies, the acceptable private strategy, the acceptable private strategies, the acceptable public strategy, the acceptable public strategies, the acceptable silent strategy, the acceptable silent strategies, the acceptable written strategy, the acceptable written strategies, the acceptable photo strategy, the acceptable photo strategies, the acceptable audio strategy, the acceptable audio strategies, the acceptable video strategy, the acceptable video strategies, the acceptable past strategy, the acceptable past strategies, the acceptable present strategy, the acceptable present strategies, the acceptable future strategy, the acceptable future strategies,